Hello, and welcome back to Movie Night Reviews. I'll be your host today, Peter Waring. Today's topic is non-franchise movies. Now, let's get started. It's a very common thing nowadays for most movies that have sequels and whole franchises spin off of it. Today I'll be talking about some of my favorite movies that are not franchise movies. And if I want to watch a movie and I don't want to actually bother trying to get into watching a whole series of movies that takes weeks to watch. This will be a spoiler-free review of all the movies. Let's get started.
Number 12, Inception.
This movie, I think a lot of people have really talked about this movie. This movie is really good. I watched it because I had a lot of people telling me about how it's so complicated that no one will be able to understand it the first time. So I took it on as a challenge and tried to really pay attention and try to figure it all out. When I actually talked to people afterwards, they did tell me about some stuff that I didn't notice before. I'm like, oh, very interesting. I actually didn't pick up on that. So I will say that people are most of the time true when it comes to this movie. Does take a second time to watch it to actually appreciate it fully. But I really liked this movie. It was very, very interesting, very complicated, and it's like, I will say, this is probably on the bottom of my list because of the reason. The mission they go on in the movie is that good. I'm like, one of the biggest problems that I have with this movie is that I feel like you're supposed to root for the main character, and for the movie I was like, hold on a second. But why should I be rooting for this character and not the characters they're going up against? Because those characters seem to be more justified in what they were doing than the main character did. He was just doing it for money, while they were doing it because, it's their business. Not going to go into spoilers, but I don't see a reason why that should have been the mission, because I wasn't rooting for them that much to, win, and that's a big problem.
Number 11, Free Guy. Free Guy.
It's a movie I checked out because I saw that it had Ryan Reynolds in it. And I was going through a moment of, I want to watch a movie that has Ryan Reynolds in it. So it was a new movie. I checked it out and loved it. I've watched it 3 or 4 times. It doesn't really get old. It's enjoyable. Some pretty funny scenes, music. It's a hilarious movie. It's definitely a Ryan Reynolds movie. Most people don't like some of the stuff they put in with cameos and stuff like that. But I actually find it kind of funny having certain cameos. I won't go into spoilers on those cameos, but overall, really like this movie. I am not the biggest gamer, but I love how I could get into a gamer movie and feel like, I understand stuff, even that I actually have never played games like that before. And I've loved the story behind this character trying to break out of his element and all. Really nice. I enjoy that.
Number 10, Jojo Rabbit.
Jojo Rabbit is one of those movies I made sure to put on this list because of the reason that you're going to hear about when I talk about the Thor movies and all. That I am not the biggest fan of Taika Waititi. But I want to mention this movie because this is the one movie I actually like. And I think there were some great scenes done. When I watched it, I was like, whoa, that's really cool. How he took a thing that seems really you can't put humor into it. And we always like to say that the Germans were the bad guys in World War II. They were the most evil people ever, right? But I loved how the story made me think okay, so these Germans who became Nazis, some of them might have been literally brainwashed into believing this stuff, right? You have some really funny ways of showing it, but it made me thinking about wow, yeah, it's interesting. How do we know they weren't some of them might have been misinformed about what Jews actually thought or what they made a really funny way of saying these Jews are bat-like creatures, they're really just humans. But I think they knew that, but there could have been some Germans who were misformed on what was happening. Also it how they have one character in the movie is helping the Jews get out of Germany and all. And he's yeah, there's good Germans during World War II. This is one scene in the movie where it's just perfectly done, where I won't go into spoilers about, but the main character sees something and you never really see properly, but you can just tell by the way he's reacting to it that what had happened, and you're like, what? What on earth? Like, wow. And the last bit of the movie is just like, whoa, because of that. Anyway, so yeah, I really like this movie. It has some hilarious laughs in it, but it also is a very good deconstruction of what happened in World War II in Germany.
Number 9. Hacksaw Ridge.
Hacksaw Ridge is a great movie off of a true story that happened in World War II. Andrew Garfield does a great job as the main character. The story is incredible. The biggest thing I have against it is I'm not a pacifist as much as he is, so I'm like, and I am Christian. I do believe that in not killing, but I don't think God said that you can't kill in war at all, because you literally have parts in the Bible where the Israelites have to fight in battle. They win not by the other army just laying down the weapons and leaving. They win because they killed off their enemies, right? So I don't think that God is against us killing when it's needed. So I really like the story. I think I really like rooting for the character. Like, yeah, stand up for what you believe in. But I also will have to say that I'm not fully on his side about that. I don't. We should just not kill in war. I really like the character, and I really like the story. It's kind of gruesome. It's rated R, but it's an enjoyable watch. And if you are an adult and you want to watch a World War II movie,
this is a pretty good one to watch. Number 8. Gladiator.
Gladiator. I haven't watched this movie in a while, but when I last watched it, I loved it. I actually own it. I still need to get to watching it again, but yes, I love this movie. It's awesome. There's some very quotable lines. I actually have a sword it's called a Miranda's sword after Maximus Decimus Miranda's, the main character in Gladiator. I really like this movie. It's really good. The cinematography is good. The music is good. The story is awesome. I think it ends in a really cool way. I recommend that if you are old enough, again, this is another R-rated movie. Feel free to check this out. It's a great story.
Number 7. The Batman.
The Batman is an awesome. I went through a phase of researching stuff about serial killers, and especially when it comes to serial killers such as Zodiac Killer and killers like that. So I absolutely loved it. How many nods to the Zodiac Killer they showed in The Riddler. I was actually first thinking of putting the movie Zodiac on this list, but then I'm like, it's not perfect. I kind of enjoy parts of it, but it's not perfect, so I didn't put it on this list for that reason. But yeah, the character's awesome. I guess the biggest complaint I have with it is I'm glad in the theatrical cut they didn't put in this Joker besides that one scene, but I don't think we need another Joker. I think we should keep away from having the Joker in Batman movie. There's a lot of Batman villains, and the Joker doesn't have to be the only one you can do. I absolutely love it how they handled the Riddler and made this really goofy type character into a very disturbing type guy. I will say, when the Riddler doesn't have his mask on, it's even more disturbing. He's like smiling. He's kind of disturbing. It's awesome. And the killing's all interesting. So, yeah, I really enjoyed this movie, and I say it's a movie that you should check out.
Number 6. The Princess Bride.
It's a movie I grew up watching. I love The Princess Bride. It's hilarious. Has sword fighting. It's awesome. When I was little, my parents would always have to skip past the fire swamp and scenes like that because I was always scared of that. But well, now that I'm older and I can stand those scenes, I'm like, yeah, they're hilarious, and it's a very enjoyable watch. The characters are fun. The movie is just, it's not perfect, but it's an enjoyable watch.
Number 5. Knives Out.
I remember when I first came upon the trailer of this, I'm like, oh, it's a murder mystery movie. I'm going to check it out just because I was expecting a normal murder mystery movie. I won't go into spoilers, of course, as I said before. But it was not what I was expecting, and I actually liked that. I liked how it was different than most murder mysteries.
Ryan Johnson.
This is how you make a good movie. After seeing this movie, I'm like, wow. I first thought he was just a terrible director, but no, he actually can do good movies. He was not made for making a Star Wars movie. Yeah, this has great music. So the whole movie takes place in a mansion. So you have a lot of like seeing this mansion, all the little details, and the victim of the murder is an old man who was a murder mystery writer. So there's a lot of like little clues, little mystery stuff. It's basically like watching a movie that's not Clue. That's literally just a Clue movie. It's really fun to watch. And so you did hear that they're making a sequel. Actually, I think the sequel just came out last month or something. But so I guess this is not actually truly a non-franchise movie now, because there is a sequel to it. And I probably will check out the sequel and give my thoughts on that eventually. But I'll say right now, I really like this movie. I guess maybe you shouldn't have been put on the list because now it's a follow-up to it, but it could have been. It's literally just a good solo film by itself. It doesn't need any follow-ups.
Number 4, It's a Wonderful Life.
It's a Wonderful Life. It's a great Christmas classic. It's one I watch almost every year. I might make a video dedicated to just Christmas movies this season, but It's a Wonderful Life is a great movie with an awesome story and deals with a really interesting message of how your life does bring hope to other people, even if you don't realize it. I mean, for those who haven't seen this movie, I'm not going to spoil what happens, but it's an awesome movie with like a really sad but also kind of a joyful story in it. And for those who haven't checked it out, please check this movie out. It's really, really good. And I bet once you watch it, you will probably add it to your Christmas classics.
Number 3, 1917.
1917. I recently watched this movie and I loved it. This movie is awesome. It's filmed in a way that seems like it's one continuous shot. And for those who are wanting to watch this movie for all the action and all, I will warn you. One of my favorite things about this movie is, as someone who's not the biggest fan of just action, this is one of the reasons why I don't like Star Wars, is because there's too much action in it. This movie is very much not action-filled. This movie is really accurate to what war would have been like, in the way that there's a lot of suspense, but not a lot of action. When there is action, it feels justified, but I love it how you have the moments of hiding when the Germans are around, and there's some twist in this that I did not see coming, and I probably will go into a spoiler review of this eventually. But yeah, this movie's awesome. I love it how they did such a good job making it seem like it was one really long shot. This movie's also rated R, but it's mainly just for language and a little bit of violence. But it's really good, and I recommend, if you are not too frightened of like war and all, you can feel free to check this one out. But if you are a big person you can't stand suspense and all, this movie might get your nerves going a lot, so you can feel free to skip it. But yeah, this is a movie that I say is for anyone who can stand it. It's a must watch because it's really, really good and it's a masterpiece.
Number 2, Tolkien.
For those who saw my last video, know that I'm a big Tolkien fan. A little background around this, right? So this movie came out in 2019, right? I saw the trailers for it. It just came out. Like, I really want to watch this movie. I've heard of it. I heard some people saying, "Oh, this movie's great." I'm like, "Oh, I have to check this movie out." But I didn't get to it right away. So then, during that whole time, I was also writing a speech about Tolkien's life for a competition in high school and all. And so there was tournaments and all. And for those who are around the same age as me, knows what happened around that time of 2019 and right after 2019, we went into 2020s. So my tournaments were in the beginning of 2020s. So it was around the time of March that I got to watch this movie. I just got back from a tournament, and for those people who watch this in the future and are kind of young and who don't have as clear memories of COVID as I do, so it was March, right? And I was just coming back from that tournament. I got back. It was like maybe the next day or the day after that. It all went down. We suddenly heard, "Must wear masks," right? And then the very next day, it was like churches are closed. No one is allowed to leave the house. No parties over 10, and like all this stuff, right? So suddenly I was in a complete lockdown. So all my tournaments got closed. And so because of that, I had no reason to continue the speech, but I'm like, I really want to watch this movie now that I'm done with the speech. So I picked up the movie, watched it, and I loved it. It was awesome. This movie is awesome. It does a great job. I will say, right, coming after making a speech and doing a bunch of research on Tolkien, it was one of those things where, like, I didn't notice the problems they had with changing his life, but for most of the part, they did capture the character of Tolkien. I loved it. It had a great story to it. I love the lessons, and this is a movie, wow, it's just one movie, and I'm okay with keeping it away. Out of all the ones on this list, is the one I'm most like. I would love to see a sequel to this movie. I would love them to go into another one of these, which I'm also going to say I don't want to. Yeah, I'm kind of mixed about this, but I kind of would love to see the same director and the same actors make a sequel to this, where it goes into him writing the books or something else in his life. That would be awesome. Right? I would love to see that. But I also think this is a movie that's satisfying itself enough that I don't need to have a sequel to it. I can just watch the movie over and over again and be like, wow, yeah, you did a great job with making Tolkien's life, like, to the masses. Good. They did a really good job, and they stayed true to the character.
Number 1. Troy.
For those who may not know, I'm a big fan of the Iliad. The Iliad is one of my favorite books, and second to Lord of the Rings. And I love it. The Iliad is a great masterpiece of work. And this movie makes some changes, did some stuff different that I enjoyed. For example, before watching this movie, I wasn't the biggest fan of Achilles. I always thought he was kind of a brat. And after watching this movie, really woke in like, okay, maybe I should look at Achilles in a different way. I kind of could tell before that, yeah, I understand where Achilles is coming from. But after watching this movie, I was like, yeah, this was awesome. Achilles really was a tormented guy doing this. And Agamemnon is just, he's a jerk. I think they did a good job with this, and the scenes when they actually pulled scenes from the books, it was awesome. They actually did finish the Trojan War. For those who haven't read the Iliad, spoiler alert, it doesn't end the Trojan War. It ends in a different spot in the Trojan War. But I love it how they finished it, and you have to see Achilles. We all know what happens to Achilles in the end of the Trojan War. So Troy, it's a great movie. If you're an adult, it's also rated R. You can feel free to check it out. So, in the end, these are my favorite non-franchise movies. Tell me your thoughts on the matters. Mention maybe some movies that you have watched that don't have franchises that you think is awesome. And I will probably go into another video to talk about movies I feel like should have and should not get sequels, and movies I feel like should. I'm a fan of having follow-up movies, but I'm also not a fan of always having follow-up movies because if the sequels is not as good as the original, there's no point. And if the story doesn't need to be continued, don't, right? With stuff like 1917, I don't know what they could do with a sequel. It's good onto itself. Gladiator ends in a way that can't really have a sequel that well. And yeah, most of these movies on this list will probably never get a sequel because they ended in a way that doesn't need a sequel. And so I will go into another video on sequels and why I feel we should and should not have them. But for now, I'll just say I like sequels, but I also don't like the constant need to always have sequels. So yeah, these are the movies I like, non-franchise based movies, and I would love to know your I would love to know in the comments your opinions on these. Tell me if you have watched any of them. Tell me if you think any of these are awful and you hate them. Just be nice about it. But yeah, I'll go into another video talking about this more. But I will say that if you're like, why isn't this movie on, and why is this one? Like, I feel like you would like this one and this one. Some of these are because these are the movies I've watched before. Something I hope to do with this channel is encourage me to watch new movies, because I haven't really. I just keep watching the same movies over and over again, and I hope that this channel will help me, encourage me to be like, okay, I'm gonna check out this new movie and this movie, and so I really would like it if you guys would leave comments below on movies you guys really like that you guys want me to check out, because these suggestions might help, and I can make some reaction videos to some movies too, maybe. That I don't know if I'll do that right away. I'll probably just give my reviews from these movies, maybe record myself watching them, so I can like eventually release sometime my reaction to some of these movies. But I really like to be able to check out some new movies. I do have a list of movies that I'm going to check out, and so this list I have right now might completely change, because I'm like, oh yeah, maybe Jojo Rabbit is good, but there's these 10 other movies that I think are way better, so I'm going to kick that one off the top list and put other ones in. All these movies I feel like could switch around, but I will say for right now, these are probably my top favorite of the non-franchise movies. So yeah, please tell me in the comments below what your ones are. Been the Movie Night Reviewer, Peter Whaley, signing off.